Okay, so part two. Now I'm going to have to back up here a bit. Okay, I forgot some things. I need to fill it all in. So between that age of what, 4 to 6, right? My father and my stepmother, right? Okay. So one of her favorite things to tell me was that my mother left me because she didn't want me anymore, and that she was my mother now, and that I needed to forget about my mother. Granted, I saw my mom every summer. Okay, I was with her for 2 months out of the year, every year, okay, for summer break. And so I knew that wasn't true for the most part, but being so little, that's confusing. Like, I see my mom, like, she's happy to see me, uh, you know, but yet this woman who I'm with 90% of the year is telling me that my mom actually doesn't want me, etc., etc. So then like this inherent just bitterness towards my mother was growing. It was just this little seed that, somewhere in me, I believe that, well, she wasn't with my dad anymore. So, I mean, clearly something, was up. I'm a baby, a very small child trying to process all these emotions, all this information by myself. Okay. And so there's that. And now back to her with my father. Okay. So they screwed like rabbits, as they say. Okay. Um, and they honestly didn't care if I saw it. Being so little, I thought the man was killing her. Right? It's a normal reaction. I don't know what they're doing, which is weird because I had seen it on television, but I guess I couldn't make that connection. Like I don't know. It scared me. So that happened regularly, by the way. So then I remember this one time where I had walked in on them again and I started crying. And they didn't stop. And she invited me into the bed. She told me to take off my pajamas and come here. I did as I was told. I got in the bed. My father did not stop. So they are actively having sex. And they put me right in between them. So I'm on top of my naked stepmother. My father is on top of both of us. And she used me to pleasure her. And so, needless to say, this is about the time where I was becoming confused about my gender. I was just, I was confused, very confused, very shocked, traumatized, and that happened, and it was like business as usual. Nothing was said about it again. I don't remember it happening again, but it could have. Obviously, it was not a big deal at the time. So, I mean, there's a possibility that it happened again. I really don't know. So, anyway, first grade, I'm 6, and my stepmother becomes pregnant. And she gives birth to my little brother. His name is Marcus Kogure Mitchell. He was so cute. And let me tell you, that boy was my ray of sunshine. He was my reason to live. He was my everything. Oh my God, I loved that little boy. And, you know, as an adult, I realized that even at such a young age, I really should not have been allowed around him with as like mentally ill as I was, but you know, it worked out for a long time. You know, she left me with him all the time. Like, you know, I was changing diapers and feeding him and burping him, and I was basically his mom, and I loved it. And oh my gosh, I loved that boy. I love him so much. Now, I was even his first word, actually. Not mama, not dada. It was sissy. He called me sissy. I remember he woke up from a nap one day and he just had this like really weird look of like concentration on his face. And he like hissed out. He said, "Ss." Looked right at me. Anyway. We did everything together. We were always together. He was just an infant, toddler, you know, but we were inseparable. And my stepmother did not like that. She was jealous of our relationship. And so what she started doing is she started beating me in front of him and telling him, so she would beat me, you know, beat me in front of him. And he was traumatized. He'd be screaming, you know, and she would, you know, beat me, and then she would grab him and sit him on her lap and tell him that I was stupid, that I was worthless, and that, you know, and basically encourage him to laugh at me. Of course he wouldn't. He was so upset. And again, here came my mental illness. She treated us like night and day. I was garbage and he could do no wrong. And you know, I became jealous. You know, I spent every waking moment trying to please this woman, trying to make her happy, trying to be perfect for her, and it was never enough. And he was a good kid. Don't get me wrong. He was a really good boy. There's nothing wrong with him. But I just, you know, I couldn't understand why he got treated better than I did, you know? Which Obviously, it was not his fault. It was hers. She was sick. I understand that now. But, and because I was just, again, all this is happening, and these, depression, anger, now jealousy and envy are growing. And so then he became my object of abuse. I remember this one time I took, what is that stuff called? Help me out. Oh, that bathroom scrubber, that foaming bathroom spray? I remember I took that and I sprayed it in his eyes. And this was closer to the divorce. So, okay, let's see. He had to be about 2 years old. So I was 7. Is that right? That's not right. Okay, wait. Okay, I was about 8. Okay. So, okay, I was about 8. I was about 8. He was about 2. And I did that to him. And, he was fine, but not a horrible thing to do. Now that I'm saying it, I'm like, wow, I really did that, And he was fine, but, it's like, what if he wasn't, what if he had gone blind or something, And I lied. I did lie, because of course he cried. Oh. And so I told my stepmother that he had done it to himself. He didn't correct me for some reason. But he wasn't talking, but he knew. I mean, he was kind of talking, but not really fluently, but he knew what I said. I know he did, and he could have said something, but he didn't. So, another thing I did, I was definitely 8. And, little boys, they don't believe in pants, when they're that age. So I don't remember what he was doing, but for some reason he was half naked. And I got this it was an overwhelming urge to lick his pee-pee. And I did. And the look on his face. I was so ashamed. I wanted to die. I wanted to die. Praise God, I never did that again. But I did that. I did that to him. So now This is, really just a few months later. Our parents got into another fight. Uh, Fighting was normal. And me and my little brother, I would take him, and I would take him upstairs in our room, and I would close the door, and we would just cling to each other while we listened to them scream at each other. But this one morning, I woke up to her screaming my name. So I ran downstairs, and they were fighting again. But this time, my dad actually put his hands on her. He started throwing her around. And at one point, she had grabbed my brother, and so he was in her arms, and my dad was still like beating her. And so she dropped him, and he hit his head. And I was standing in between the two, trying to push my dad off. Obviously, I'm 8 years old. There's not much I can do. So the police get called. She puts in a statement, and the divorce proceedings begin. I remember at this time, I went to see a counselor for the first time in my life. I only got to go one time, though, which I was really, really upset about. I really, really liked the session, and that would have really helped at that time. But I only got to go one time. I remember being heartbroken that I didn't get to go again. My dad just canceled my appointment. Of course he would. So they got divorced. And then this is pretty much the beginning of me not seeing my brother anymore. I can count on my hands how many times I saw him after that. And the last time I saw him was when he was 8 years old. The last time I talked to him. And the last thing he said to me was, "Big sis, come home." I haven't seen or talked to him since. So it's been basically about 20 years now. And it's a long time to be sorry, and a long time to miss someone. I'm still hoping that even as the world is ending, that the Lord will let me see him just one more time, so I can tell him how sorry I am. And how much I missed him. How much I love him. But anyway. Onward. So, I was 8. He's gone. At school. So it's basically stopped all the extracurricular activities off base at this point. So now I have nothing. I'm a loner at school. shy. I don't really have friends. The friends I did make, they were cool at first, but they eventually would drift away and start avoiding me. And, looking back, I realized, I was super clingy. And, because I was so desperate to be accepted by someone, But, so I didn't really have friends. And again, it was back to being at home with this man who, couldn't keep his hands off of me. And if he, you know, if he wasn't paying attention to me, he was zoned out in front of the television, so he was completely emotionally and everything else unavailable to me. So I was alone all the time. So, third grade comes around and I decide I want friends, and I was willing to do anything, and I did. I became someone else. I forced myself to be outgoing. I forced myself to be chatty. I forced myself to smile and, tell jokes and be goofy and, more likable, someone that people would like and want to be around. So then I did make friends. I had a lot of friends. Everybody, was, my friend. I knew everybody in my class. Again, this is third grade. And, again, remember I was violent, so I had a habit of beating up the boys and kissing them a lot. I kissed girls too. And I keep thinking, like, as I'm talking, and I've had this thought before, but I'm like, how did I not end up in some kind of institution? Why didn't I get caught doing these things? It was just like, I don't, like, my mind is like boggled by, like, how did I go through all those years without getting into such big trouble? Like, literally just beating people up, kissing them, yeah, I don't know. And also this is third grade. I know I keep saying that. I'm trying to keep myself on track. This is third grade, so I actually developed physically. I had boobs in third grade. And, I started growing hair in places, and I started, I had boobs, like hips and stuff, So that attracted more predators, and I was, molested by complete strangers even. A lot of them were my dad's friends. Surprise, surprise. Um, and when I say strangers, I mean strangers. Like, the dare guy copped a feel of my tits, like, in front of people. The way my school was set up, we had what was called pods. Maybe some of you know what that is, but there were 4 classrooms in a, like, cul-de-sac type thing. So you would walk down to the end of the hall, and there would be 2 classrooms on each side. 2 classrooms on each side, and windows. There were windows everywhere. You could see everything out in the hallway. So the dare guy came. You guys know what that is? It's from the 90s. Dare. I don't even remember what that stands for, but I think something about drugs. But anyway, so this airman came, talked to us about dare, And when the class was over, me and my friend at the time, she wasn't really a friend, she was actually quite terrible, but we were out in the hallway. I think we had just come out of the bathroom or something. He stopped us and he asked us what we thought of the presentation, etc., etc. And he just reached up and just fondled my boob, and then like basically ran. Like he booked it. He was gone. So my friend was standing next to me and was like, oh, and again, yeah, she was standing right there. She saw the whole thing. So she was like, Kavina, tell the teacher. So I had to shake myself basically, and I told my teacher, and she said, oh, and went back to teaching the class. Did nothing, just completely blew me off. So after that, I stopped going to school. I decided that I hated her and I didn't want to see her anymore, and I wasn't going to stay in her class, so I stopped going to school. And I kept that up until my father figured out that I was skipping school, and then I was forced to go back. But yes, I did also tell him, and he also did nothing. So surprise, surprise, though. So that was third grade. And yeah, that was when I started thinking I was a boy. I was really starting to hate being a girl. So this is about the time that I started wearing more masculine clothes. I was basically stealing my dad's clothes. And I started, experimenting with lowering my voice and things like that. And gender dysmorphia. There it was. What part is this? This is part 3. Stay tuned for part 4.